guys, happy Friday. Welcome to another fun beading class. Today is an earrings party. So we're gonna make 3 super fast styles that are really on trend right now that I've seen in department stores and I've seen in magazines and in some snapshots of the runway. So these are definitely going to be really popular styles that we're gonna make them in a couple different ways. I've got bright colors on the mat. I made the original designs in like a crystal clear because that's really trending right now too. But of course, some bright colors to see really clearly while we're working might be helpful. So when we get down to the mat, I'll just show you guys a bunch of different stuff that we can put together. They're so fast. So kind of in the order of how we'll teach them, I've got some faux threaders, and these are really trending right now. The way the chain hangs. And then I've got I have a couple colors to show you. So this is the crystal clear. This one is a like a chain, like a waterfall chain. And I made one a while ago in a green color that is really also very pretty on gold. So you can see where you can take these, lots of different places. And then last but not least, my favorite actually are these pearl dusters. And these were directly inspired by something I saw personally in a shop that I thought were just so pretty. And they're really simple, but sometimes that simple thing is that extra special thing that does really well in your shop that month, or it's the thing that is just the best gift, right? So whoever you're making them for, they're for you or anyone else. I think this will be a really fun class. So let me switch down to the mat and show you guys everything that I've got here. So thanks, Felicia. So in addition to the finished pairs, I have here a bunch of materials. The main materials we're going to use is crystal. And so I used clear. I didn't use the AB finish ones. I used a Bicone and I used some rounds. And so on the side here, I've got a couple different colors of those. I've got some green and some orange, some emerald and orange. I thought maybe we could play with that and see how that looks. And then for findings, there's quite a lot of findings. But I used some eye pins and head pins. Those are a staple that we always want to have handy when we're doing some wire jewelry. Some earring posts here. And the clutches. The clutches are those little things that attach at the back. And these packs, I've used some things out of them, so they're not full packs. And then just some extra things, some jump rings, and these are little 3mm beads. These are really fun. They come in handy for a lot of different kinds of projects. You'll also need some chain, and you can go to town with your chain. You can use any kind you want. I've used a lot of different types of chain. So I used this one in the main styles that are in the handout. And then in some earlier versions, I was using the paperclip chain that we have coming up for our class next week. So this is another one where if you wanted to make your, make your stash stretch a little further, you can use the same chain that we're going to use next week. That's the one that you see here. So 2 different ways you could change that up. There's also these hoops, and these come with a lot. So this is ideal for sellers. Like you can make a bunch of these with these hoops. And last but not least, I've got some pearls. And forgive me about my strand. I've been using this for a long time and I've still got tons left, but it was originally on the strand wall. And this comes with 4 strands. There's 4 strands of pearls that were originally attached here in 4 different sizes. And so these are the assortment that I got from that. And then of course, we're gonna need some tools. So for tools, I'm using your basic everyday wire working tools. And those are, let's start with our flush cutters. You'll need something that you can use to cut your wires, mainly the head pins and eye pins. And then you'll need some chain nose pliers. Now I've got 2 kinds of chain nose pliers here. I have your regular chain nose pliers, which are more pointy. And I also have some square chain nose, which come in handy for jump rings. I've got round nose pliers, which are how we're going to roll loops. And then I've got some bent nose pliers that I also use to open and close my jump rings. So that's it in a nutshell. You won't need any other like wire tools, but if you want to have a tape measure handy, that can really help, because especially if you're new to doing some of these loops, having some way to measure just for your original, as you're getting used to, I eyeball it now, but as you're getting used to what things look like, when you're doing like a simple loop, for example, that 1/4 inch, you'll be able to just see that eventually after you work with wire for a long time. But if it's new to you, having that tape measure is super handy. Okay, and so everything I just showed that I'll be using is here in the handout. So all of that is here. And let's just dive in. Let's make the threaders first. And again, those are these. And so for step 1, we're just going to do kind of like a mise en place, like you're going to be cooking, like a cooking show. We're going to just start with the factory of creating the pieces and the parts. And if you're making bunches of these, do that all at once, like for all the ones you're making. It makes it a lot easier. So we'll start with creating our links of chain. And you can either count links or measure it. For ones that are like really long like this, I'll default to measuring. For ones that are shorter, you'll notice that when we do these, I tend to call out the links because it's just a little easier to do that way. And then we'll want to make sure we have some of our other pieces and components on hand. So we'll need our silver beads, and we'll need our crystal, which I'm going to be using the round crystal here. And we'll need some of the ball head pins. So let's start with the chain. And right now at Michael's, there's a lot of chain. So some of the chain that I'm showing you today, I've had on hand for some time. I've been using it for a lot of different projects, but there's more. There's new stuff that I've had my eye on, some of the new silver chain that they just came out with. So definitely check that out. Okay, here's my tape measure. And we're going to start with making 1.75 inches for the first one. And so I'm going to cut this at about right there. And you can always make these different lengths depending on what you like, right? You're not stuck with these counts or measurements in any way. So I'm just cutting above that last one. And so if you were going to make a bunch of these, I'll cut my second one now. What I like to do is I'll get my round nose pliers and I'll put that first link of chain on my round nose pliers, right? If your link is too small and doesn't fit, then it may not work as well. Mine does, barely fits on there. And then you'll grab your next one. This is the one that's still attached to my spool. I'm going to need to use my chain nose because the link is too small to go over my round nose. And I'll click the next one in there. Actually, I'm going to use a beading needle. It's going to be a little easier. It does help if you can hang it. There we go. Okay. So get those hung like that. And then you can just see where you need to cut next. So you don't have to sit there and measure over and over again. Where did that go? It jumped away. Here we go. So one more time on that. Let's get the end of this one on here. End of that one. All right, and so for our second cut, you're just going to see right here that I need to cut just the link right below it. All right, so there's my first two 1.75 inch lengths, all ready to go. Next one I want to cut is 2.25 inches. So again, same as before, I'm just going to lay this out, get that tape measure on here. And I see I want to cut the link right above that one. That one cut. Needle here. So I'm just kind of pulling it along the mat so that it lays flat. And then we've got our measurement there. So now we know these also match really well. Always handy to have a beading needle nearby. And something I'm doing here, I like to just make sure I scoop all these up before they end up on my floor. If you guys have cats or dogs, that's always good. Get those little metal things out of the way. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to get our ball pins. The ball pins are right here. Not handy. And these come in these resealable bags. I've been resealing mine so they don't tarnish. These are real silver, sterling silver. So you want to store all of your silver in the bags it came with. So I thought that was a really thoughtful way to sell them. And we need some of the beads, and then we need some of our crystal. So what do you guys think, green or orange? I was going to go with clear, just like the design originally is done, but then I thought, I don't know, something bright might be fun for today. So I'm going to grab the two options here. That's green, and I've got bright orange. And sorry, I thought I grabbed one of the already open ones, but here we go. All right.
Danielle,
Yep.
the green people are surpassing the orange people.
The green are winning. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Let's do it. Okay. So we're just going to need 4 of these. 4. All right. So I'm going to get my round nose pliers handy. These are my round nose. And let's get our ball pen here. And the only difference between this and the other pins is it's got this really pretty decorative ball on the end. And this is just up to you, like whatever you like. But what I did for mine was I strung a bead and then a crystal and then a bead. And what we're going to do next is create just what's called a simple loop. And so a couple ways you can do simple loops. A lot of folks have their own style for how to do it. I like to just take and do the bend forward before I do the trim. So these are my round nose pliers. I'm getting it to as far to the point as I can. And I'm going to just use that to hold everything steady while I bend this forward. Now these are soft enough you could probably bend them without even holding, but bend it about that much. And then we're going to trim it so that it is about 1/4 inch long from the top. So you want to measure it this way. So I'm going to trim it right about there. And so here's my flush cutters. We want to cut it so that the flush side, that's this side right here, is facing the part that's going to still be part of our work. And try to do that kind of as flush as you can. So right about there at that 1/4 inch mark. And again, I'm just kind of holding this so that it doesn't fly. And you know, wear eye protection if you're not sure, but I've kind of developed a method for me where I can keep my pieces from getting scattered. And you'll develop that too as you keep going. So now here's my round nose pliers again. Let's go to the end, and I'm going to work it about maybe here on the plier. And that's just about, gosh, let's see where we are. It's like maybe 2 ticks away on an inch here. And that's going to give me a loop that is about 3 millimeters or so. So right there. And something else I do is I feel to make sure it's flush. That's the end of the wire here. We're just bringing that into the round nose pliers. I'm just going to bend that forward now. So we're rolling forward away from ourselves to form a loop. And close it up. You can kind of see where it's just now making that connection. And so that's all you got to do. And this one is mostly closed, but I'm just going to bring my chain nose pliers over here, flatten it, make sure that it's in plane with itself, and set that down. Let's do that one more time. So I've got another bead, a ball, and a bead. There's going to be lots of simple loops today. Let's show another way. Earlier, what we did was we used our round nose pliers to do that bending forward. That's a really handy trick to have if you're working with really hard head pens, like work hardened or a harder type of wire. This sterling is very soft, so I'm going to just take my thumbnail and just bend it like this. Once I get it going, and then give it a little bit more. So just same thing, but just a little bit different. Just bent it with my fingers. Put that ball on there. And I'm eyeballing it this time, but about 1/4 inch, right? That we want to trim. Not trimming off 1/4 inch, but trimming it so that the remaining portion is about 1/4 inch. Again, I'm going to work it about 2 ticks back on 1 inch from the end of the pliers, making sure that part is flush. That's this part that's sticking through. And then we'll roll it forward. Until it connects with the little bead. There we have there. If optionally, you want to grab your chainless pliers and just make sure that it's kind of, this all stays in plane, meaning it's all in a flat line there. All right, so let's make one of the earrings. I'll set these over here for now. I need those for my second pair. I'm going to grab a short chain and I'm going to grab a long chain and my chainless pliers again. Take a look at the little loop down here. And kind of the same way we open a jump ring, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to hold this part and open it just by doing a turn of motion that's like this. But you got to make sure you find the seam first, the seam we just created. So let's look really closely and make sure I found it. And I believe it's this side. You'll know if it's not because when you're holding the top part here, holding this part and just opening it up, it won't go if you don't have the seam. If it's not the seam, flip it over and try to find it. There we go. So you'll get an open like that. Let's get our chain. I'll loop one of those bottom links on it. This one on here. And let's close it shut. So there's one. Let's get the next one. Same thing, just looking for that seam. It's a little easier to see on this one. And I'm going to hold this in my hand and just move this laterally, just like a jump ring, to open up that loop. And grab the other chain, get that end link hooked right on there, and then we'll just close it right back up. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to need my post earrings. I'm going to need one jump ring. And this is 4mm jump rings. And I'm going to need the clutch from the back. So let's get those going. And I'm taking longer than 5 minutes to make them, but when you're making these, they'll be faster because you won't be narrating the whole time, all your steps, and everything. So they're still fast. They're still fast 5-minute earrings. Let's get our jump ring out. Just need one of those. Jump ring, clutch, and now the post. All right. So the post, we'll start with that one. We're going to put the shorter part of the earring. Let me show you the example again. The shorter one is going to go, here it is right here, on the front of the post. So, and this is just because what hangs from behind your ear is going to be the longer one. The one that's behind the earlobe is the one that's going to be on the clutch. And then the short one be on the front there. So let's put that together really quick. Here's the post. This has a little seam on it that we can open. And just got to find it. It's toward the back. And just very gently open it up. And actually, mine does not seem to have a seam. Let me just take a quick look over here. And make sure that I got that right. So yeah, the loop on the earring post should open. I've got one that's not opening, guys. Let me just take a quick look at it. Making sure that I've got that right. These are hand soldered, so maybe I got one that's not. Yeah, I'm not going to force that. Changing my design on the fly here. I'm going to put a jump ring on both sides. It won't hurt it. It'll be okay. So we're just going to have a jump ring on the front and the back of my design, but I'm testing this other one just to see if the loop opens on it. Let's see. Yeah. And it opened on these. These two that I've got here are sealed. So improvise, grab one of these. This is the little tiniest little jump rings. I think 4mm is the smallest size that we have in the sterling. So there's a seam at the top here. I just found the seam here. I'm going to open that up and attach that to the loop there. I'm grabbing my short one of those. And the short one is going to go on the front. And these are my square nose pliers with my bent nose pliers that I'm doing this with. And that's just because I get a lot more visibility to see what I'm doing with my jump ring. With those. Okay, so there's the front side. Oh, excuse me. And here's my back side. All right, so here's another jump ring, another 4mm one. Just gonna open that up. And so the clutches, this is the back of the earring. It has these little loops on it. We're just gonna use one of those to attach it to. Just like that. Grab our long chain with the crystal on it. Put that right there. There we go. Okay, so that's the back done. Same thing, I'm just gonna close that jump ring. That same lateral motion there. And there we go. So super easy. And when you put the earring on, that long chain hang in the back of your ear and the shorter one on the front. Just like a threader would look. So this one, this style, in fact, this very earring, the day I made them, like I popped them on and then I went to pick up my kids and literally like the lady doing the crossing guard duty that day, she stopped me. She's like, where'd you get your earrings? So I knew I had a winner at that point. So these are really cool. All right, so that's one earring. I'm going to set aside the rest and make my second earring later. So I figured we'll get through all three. And then if we want to make any of the pairs, just to make sure I get time to squeeze everything in. Thought we would jump to these next. These are really cool. So these are the ones that are going to go on these hoops. So find the size that you like. There's more than one size in here. And again, they come in gold and silver. So you've got lots of choices, lots of options. Which one's easier to see? We'll go with silver. But I wanted to show how tiny some of these are. So here's a little teeny one. And then that's the one I used here. But you could go bigger if you wanted to. And you can also add more cascades. Like, for example, I've been sticking with the 4. But what if you added, 5 or 6? There's no reason you can't. And if you're using one of the bigger hoops, you can fit more crystal in there and you can fit more chain. So, but I used this size, which is one of the smaller ones from the pack. And if there's any questions about these materials, these are pretty old, like as far as they're not a recently new addition at Michael's. They've been there for quite a while. I had them in my stash for a long time. But you could use some of the other type of hoops that they have. They do have ones that have like a little interlocking like attachment at the top. And I've noticed you can open that and you can get stuff on it. So that's definitely something that would also work. And you can make a hoop with memory wire if that's something that you work with. Let's stick with the green since you guys are loving the green. I've got 4mm Bicones here. And the ones that I used in the originals were just crystal, clear crystal. But let's grab some of these, why not? You'll need 5 per earring. And that's easier to see on the green, but you can see there's 5 here. And then we're going to need some links of chain. And what I did in the handout for this one is instead of giving you a measurement, I actually gave you the links. And that is based on this chain. And this chain has little 3 millimeter size links. If you're using a different size chain, like if you're using the paper clip chain, you can just start with 2 and then just add 1 for every new link that you do. So see, this one's got 2 and then 3, 4, and 5. But essentially all you're doing is you're adding a link or 2. Start with the smallest one and then just add 1 or 2 to each. Repeat, and you'll get a cascade. So there's really no trick to it other than that. Like you just want to make sure they kind of go in a little layer. So let's start with I'll stick with what I did before. So we'll start with the 6 links here. So I'm cutting here the 7th. Here's 1. Okay, let's cut 8 links for the second one. So there, I'm cutting the 9th. That's actually something that I often make a mistake and do is I'll 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. There's 8, there's 6. Sometimes I'll cut the 8th one. You got to remember if you want 8 links, you got to cut the 9th link. Speaking to myself there. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, cutting the 11th, Danielle. There we go. And the 12th one. All right. 9, 10, 11, 12, and they're cutting number 13. And we're good. Okay, so there's my little cascade of links. Let me move this up a little bit. And here's my hoop. All right, so let's start with a crystal. String a crystal on there. And then let's string a link of chain. And I'm going to start with a long one. I don't think it matters if you go short to long or long to short. Something to think about is when you're wearing it, the part that's going to be the front is the part that's not hooked, right? So this is going to be behind your ear. So this is the front of the earring. So I'm putting my longest one at the back. That was just my preference. You can do either, and it's going to work either way. And I'm just going to add a link of chain crystal until we get to the end there. All right. That's so pretty. So all we have to do to finish it, and this is where square nose pliers are going to be super handy. Again, those are chain nose pliers with a square tip. You want to take this end, the end that we were stringing on, and secure your pliers just to the very end of it and make this part flush. So this little thing that's jetting out there, I just want to make that flush with it. So just like that. Okay, and I'm just going to do a slight bend. Nothing too crazy. Just a slight little bend up. And it's going to make it look like that. This is how you get that spring action hooking when you're wearing it. So it should look something like these. If it's not hooking for you and you feel like it needs to have more tension or more spring, this one kind of just worked. And most of them do, but if you get one that doesn't, unhook it a little bit and take this side and give it a little downward pressure. They do bend, but then they have enough memory that you can kind of make them hook. So just like that. And they'll hang just like that on your ear. So that's another style that is very, very popular and trending right now. Also just so striking. Okay, so on to the last one, the pearls. these guys. Okay, so this is another one where we're going to cut a bunch of links of chain. And they all kind of have that theme going. But what I did here was I'm back to measuring, and I did that in case you got different chain, but about 3/4 of an inch for each of these links was what I did. And that was me measuring for the drop length that I wanted for the duster. And when I was actually at the store, I kind of measured on myself. I was wearing it to see where it hung on my ears, and like it almost touches the shoulder, just a shoulder duster. But if you want to make that specific for different neck lengths, you can change this length here. It does look kind of cool if they're all the same, meaning these measurements here, but there's no rule there either. You can make them different if you want to. So what I did is I just grabbed, and I'm down to the last of this chain. I used it up. It took me a while to use it. It lasted me a long time. Let's go for the 0.75 inches. So I'm going to cut right about here. And it doesn't need to be exact because we're going to use that trick again. We're going to go and make them all match. The important part is that they match. So here's my beading needle, this teeny little chain. Get that on there. There's segment 1. And what I do is I draw it down on the mat so that they're both in a straight line. And then I'm going to trim the one that's hanging just below. Let's do that one more time. And with a larger chain, you can get your round nose pliers into it. But with this one, I was finding it worked with a beading needle. This is so tiny and delicate. So there's my third link here. There we go. All right, so there's my links that'll go in between each of my pearls. I just did the 3. So we'll just do one. And so now what I need is eye pins. I'm going to need an eye pin for this one. This is a 6mm pearl. An eye pin for this one, 6mm. Eye pin for this one. And then I'm going to use one of the ball head pins for this last little one here. And that's all that's on each of them. There's no other beads, just the pearl. Grab my pearls. So I'm going to get 6mm, 8mm. It's my 8. And these 3 are my 6. So there's those. Okay, let's do the big one first since I have a ball head pin handy. And again, these are simple loops. So they're not wrapped loops. They're the ones that that you do as just one loop around. So there it is on the ball head pin. Let's just bend it forward so that it's about like that. Trim it to 1/4. So we're going to trim it so that this part measures about 1/4 inch. And again, I'm using the flush cutters, pointing them kind of like this way. So the flush side is pointing toward my part I'm trying to save. Trim that off. And then get those round nose pliers again. Making sure that's flush there. And roll it forward. There's one loop done. And now I need my eye pins. Get those eye pins handy. These are the 1-inch eye pins. And this is a tiny little connection, so you really don't need much. You just need just enough for one bead. They do have this in a longer eye pin if you're doing more than one string. So one side we're just going to leave as a loop. Top side we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to bend so that it's like that. Trimming it to about that long. Get those flush cutters over here. And I'm eyeballing that 1/4 inch, but you can measure if you'd like. There's something that a friend of mine who does a lot of wire was saying that, actually she's the gal who taught me. It's knowing your tools. So when you get a new pair of tools, it's almost like you have to learn to wire again, because you get to know your tools and their dimensions. Like I know that 1/4 inch, I know where that is on this plier. This, measurement here, because on a round nose plier, they get bigger as they come down, right? And it's just something that you develop this like sixth sense for. But when you first start working on it, what some of the tricks people use is they use a Sharpie to mark. Like they get one that's perfect and they love it, and they mark on the plier where they did that one so they can remember for next time. And eventually that Sharpie that you marked on the plier, it will eventually just kind of rubs off. But by then you kind of remember where it is by your sight anyway. There's that one. I need to do one more. Bend that forward. Just like that. Trim it to a 1/4 inch. And we're just going to roll that forward. Okay, I'm doing this trick again where I get my chain nose pliers and just kind of make sure they're in plane, right? All going in a straight line. See how this one's kind of bent a little bit? Just kind of making sure it's straight that way. And that one is good too. All right, let's put them on the chain and onto the post. Now, I know from earlier that my post here needs a jump ring. I'm just taking a quick look at it one more time just to see if there's something I missed, because the ones I used before absolutely opened. But perhaps it's at the bottom. I don't know. Be really gentle if you're looking for it. And now mine is soldered really nicely. So I am going to use a 4mm jump ring. Let's grab one of those. And I'm going to switch to my square nose pliers. Just my square nose. Find the seam on my jump ring there. And bend that forward, just opening that in a lateral motion there. Let's get my really pretty earring post here. And we'll start with this link of chain here. There we go. Close that up really nicely there. Okay, let's start with our first 6mm purl. And I'm going to open one side of it. So there's that lateral motion again to get that open. Let's grab another link of chain. Put it on there. So far what I've got is my post with a link of chain on it. And I've got a 6mm purl with a link, and I'm just going to connect this right here. So let's open up the top of this one. These eye pins, the way they come out of the packaging, also have a little seam that you can find just by looking a little closely at it. Just going to get that open. Get this part of the chain and get that on there. Close it back up. All right, part one. My little dusters there. And here again, just finding the seam on that. And the next link going on. Flip it over. Let's look over here. All right, last but not least, we've got our drop. This is the one that's just on the ball. Open that up. Link it to the bottom. There we go. Here's the clutch that went with that. Could you make this have a dangle at the back too? Yeah, why not? But there's our pearl drop. And I might, because I had to add a jump ring here, go back and take off a link. But it doesn't really stand out too much. I feel like the length is pretty good there. Let's put it on. Let's put it on some cardboard so you can see what I did. These ended up being a smidge longer. So I must have cut an extra link in there somewhere. Really pretty. So these are going to be shoulder touchers for me. And you can always do adjustments. Like you can go back and trim it if you need to. That's the cool thing about simple loops, I feel like, is because simple loops can be undone and removed and reattached. And if I'm designing and I'm not 100% sure where I want to go with something, I'll do that sometimes. I'll go and I'll do like I'll go back and I'll undo it and switch the order of my beads. Maybe I was doing a bracelet or a necklace. So that's something to think about if you're just in the design stage, but you want to see it, is you can absolutely just take and do simple loops. And then that way it's always changeable. So there's one, there's two, and then here's the threaders we made. All in one little set here. Oops. Mine got tangled over here. How did I do that? There we go. So that's it in a nutshell. Is there anyone who wants to see one of these again? We got a little bit of time, or we can just chat about what's coming up, or if there's any other questions about the products I used or something you want to see different or ideas.
Danielle, you know, Danielle, if you have a second, I think Kylie asked a great question. How would you attach the hoop earrings to an earring card?
Oh, yeah, I did that on this one. So this kind of refers back to a class we did a while ago. There's two kinds of hole punches at Michael's. There's ones that have just a single hole, like these. And then they have another hole punch that has two that kind of bends in like that. And that's how I did it. If you wanted to make one like this, you could also just take and like cut a little triangle shape and pop that out and poke a hole in that and it would go in. But the trick is you got to get this to kind of go like that. They also sell these like on just various places where you buy kind of jewelry packaging, right? They sell already punched cards like that too. You know, just thinking out loud, you could use ribbon. I've done that before too, where you take something like, see how this one has the holes in it? You could just string either some craft wire or a little bit of ribbon or string here and then hook it to that and it would hang on the string. That's another way. We did a whole class on packaging, designer packaging a while ago. It was like, I think it was last summer, but it was a really fun one that you can check out. I'll post a link to it in the Facebook group. Oh, and speaking of the Facebook group, we have new PDFs going in there that have all of our past classes for Michael's in one place that you can click on each class just by the picture and it'll take you to the replay. So that's kind of cool. And the Q&A for packaging is in there too. You'll want to look at the what's it called? You'll want to look at the 2022 summerish timeframe for that one.
Danielle, I noticed in a lot of your packaging, you use like a washi tape to keep the beads from moving around a lot.
Oh yeah, especially if I'm gonna mail it. Like when I'm shipping up to Toronto, I do, if something's going to like really sway around, I'll use the like restickable tape. They have tons of them at Michael's with pretty patterns. The one I'm using right now has a bunch of leaves on it. Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
Thank you. Felicia posted the link to next week's class. And we know it just looks so much better in person than we could ever photograph it.
Oh my gosh. So next week it's more wire. I was on a little wire kick, but what we were doing was creating clusters with another one of the gemstone strands that they have on the Michael's wall that has 4 for you to choose from. So kind of like the pearls, but this one has chips and then different size rounds. And so what I did is I created a little cluster using that. And there's that paperclip chain I was mentioning. And lobster claw. It's 22 gauge German style. You'll need some bail forming pliers. This is an alternative bail style. I don't know if you guys are seeing it up close, but I'm going to go in through how I did that. It's just kind of for a chunky look, right? Really fun way to do a cluster. So we'll have a good time next week with that. And they have this gemstones in like a lot of different ones. So I was saying last week, I found rhodonite, sodalite, there's rose quartz, there was one more that I thought was really pretty and I forgot the name, but this one is red quartzite that I used for the design that's in the handout. And the SKU's in there too. So you can find that here. You can find all of that info on that first page. All the findings are here too. It was a few findings and some wire and tools. So yeah, that's next week. And then the class after that, I think we're gonna go back to some stitching after that. I figure you'll be ready for more stitch projects. We've got an odd count herringbone design. This was a special request after we did a recent class, a herringbone class that someone else kind of do an embellished odd count. Odd count's kind of hard to do in stitches that require pairs, but it's possible. And then I took the opportunity to do some color blocking. So that's this one. And then we have a spiral class coming up. This is flat spiral rope in a double column. All these colors, I feel like they all kind of went together. And then I also have handy to show you the button cuff that we're doing in June. And this one is also odd count, but we're going to do a buttonhole in peyote stitch, which we've had a couple requests to, hey, how can I do that? So this one is another answer in the call on that. Also wanted to point out that these are the same beads, which is kind of a neat thing to see. There's a few extra colors in here that's not in there, but all of these colors are here. And it just goes hand in hand with another class we're teaching, which is a color study. We're going to talk about putting seed bead mixes together, how to design your own seed bead mixes from what you have in your stash and make the same seed beads look completely different, which is what this is a good example of. Whenever you color block something versus just kind of stir it up, you get a totally different result. I love playing with that. I get a real kick out of that. It's really fun. What else do we have? Oh, and then the last 2 classes for June, I noticed those are up now. You can register for those and download that PDF. One of them is, I had it on earlier, was a crystal 3-way wrap. This was so gorgeous. I love this one. And you could always make it a single wrap if you didn't want to go that crazy. And then hoops. We got some hoop earrings. Macrame hoops, and this is on memory wire. We were mentioning earlier you can make your own hoops. We're going to do that in this class. We're going to make around and they're going to be really big. These are also really statement, really summer, super fun. And crystal, of course. And so that's all I have up there so far on the website, but I think matter of time will be some more because I'm working on those, and I'm hoping to have those to show you guys maybe by next week or the week after that. All right, any more questions for me? We've still got a few minutes. If there's something that was confusing about the designs from today, you just pull these
Hey, Danielle.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to know that I did go ahead and post the class, excuse me, the class that you did the packaging on. So
Oh,
if
you posted
anyone is
that.
looking for that, that link is in the chat.
Oh, thanks, Felicia. That's awesome. Yeah, so Felicia posted that class we were mentioning about packaging. That was a really fun one. We did probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 different ways that you can package your jewelry for both shipping, for display, and for gifting. So yeah, really fun one. And for the scrapbookers out there, you will love it. Lots of colorful paper. All right. Well, hey, unless there's more questions from me, I was just gonna wish you guys a great weekend and encourage you to post if you create something beautiful from today's class or any of our classes. Share it with us. Go hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag John Bead. And go ahead and join our Facebook group. Best way to find that is to go to blog.johnbead.com. And there's a link to join the Facebook group there if you're not already a member. And you can see all of the inspiring posts that everybody from our classes shares really wonderful things in that forum. So yeah, let's just say goodbye to you guys really quick and wish you a great weekend. Happy beading. Lots of hearts to you guys. Thank you for being here. Always great to see you.